In this video, we're going to talk about services in LMN. Services are what is going to show up for your crews when they clock out of a job to record what was completed. And this would be good for either work completion tracking, so you know what got done and when, but it's critical for invoicing as well. If you've got jobs that invoice based on work being completed, mowing, plowing, fertilizing, whatever, then it's really important you've got services set up so that your crews, after leaving a job, can tick off the services they completed, and that'll not only track those services, but it could also invoice for them automatically. Let's dive right into services and see how they're set up. If you go to settings and you go to services, you'll see your list of company services here. Now, when you first turn the key on LMN, you'll see a whole bunch have been set up for you. It's to give you a sense of what services are and how to use them. If you think about it this way, services are a service that you could have completed on a job, and a service is set up so that it's exclusively a yes or no answer. There are ways to track things like materials by the yard, by the bag, or whatever. That's coming up in the next video when we talk about activities and materials. Think of services as this: complete or not complete. Those are really your only options when you're setting up a service for a job. It's yes, we did this, or no, we didn't. Now we can, again, take that further and link materials to services and do other things for tracking, but a service is just that simple. It might help to start this section by actually showing you what it looks like on a timesheet. So what you see on the screen there is exactly what it's going to look like on a timesheet. This is the site that the crew is clocked into up here. This is the time they started and the time they left. And LMN will then present them with a list of available services on a job. So you're going to set up the services that are applicable to each job that you set up in LMN Time. Now, when I leave the job, or before I leave the job, as a foreman, I'm going to tick off the services I completed. So you can see here, this foreman's touched the mow done task. It now shows up with a check mark in dark green. It's got complete underneath it. And when they go next, that'll then log that when they were there on this date, between these times, they completed a mow. Now let's take a look at services in LMN Time, see how they're set up. So first of all, this list of services here is your list or your master list. Any of these services can be brought into a job, but a job obviously isn't going to have your whole master list. It's only going to have the services that are relevant to that job. But in order to put any service on a job, it has to exist in your master list first. So setting services is our master list. These are all the different services that we would track for a company. And I'll just pull in the ones I want each time I'm creating a job. So at the top, you can see here there's some maintenance examples with job done and mow done and bed done and spring cleanup. As you scroll down a little bit, there's some FERT and some chem examples. As you scroll down here, you'll see some snow services. And you can also see how detailed or simple you can make it. I can make a service for lot plow full or lot plow partial. Or I can actually do lot plow 0 to 2 inch, 2 to 4 inch, 4 to 6 inch, and track services completed that way. There's all kinds of ways you can set up your services. It's up to you and up to how you bill your customers. Let's take a look at setting up a service. So to do that, we're going to go down here and you're going to hit Add Service. First, you're going to set up your service name. Let's say it's a grub control application. Once I've entered the name, now I need to set up how we want to track it. Now, the things I'm about to set up here, you can change on a job-by-job basis, because of course we don't always build the services the same way for everybody. Sometimes it's one way, sometimes it's another way, depending on the customer. So what I'm about to show you will change on a job-to-job basis, but we'll set up our defaults here so that by default, we set up most of the time the right way for our jobs. Invoice type will be one of three things. It could either be included in our monthly contract. So it's not something we bill specifically. It's part of that monthly contract that we bill. It could be billed per visit. So it's something that we usually bill as we complete the service. Or it could be billed hourly, something that we clock how long the crews are doing it for, and then we bill them by the hour. Those are the three options you have. Like I said, when you get into we want to bill per unit, like per yard or per bag, that's coming in the next video when we talk about materials and activities. Service dates. When we do invoicing, do we want to hide the dates from the invoice? Do we want to show the date on the invoice? Or do we want to show the date and time on the invoice? Date and time's probably too detailed for those of you who do mowing, but not too detailed for those who do snow and ice and want really clear tracking of when you perform the services. The invoice description here will be the note that shows up on the customer's. So for example, it might not look very professional to just show grub control on the customer's invoice. I'll probably put a note in here that shows more detail. Let's take a look at an example. So service name in this one is grub control done. The invoice description though is grub control applied to all turf areas to reduce infestations and damage from predators, whatever the description you want on the invoice. So that will be what shows up on the customer's end invoice. Taxable, again, it'll just configure whether it's taxable or not. The actual job will determine what tax. So if you have different taxes by different counties, that'll be set up later. And then the last setting is something called flag for review. And what flag for review does is put an extra little icon beside it when you do invoicing, and it's to draw your attention to do a double check when you're invoicing. Only use flag for review for things that are often done incorrectly or missed, so that somebody in the office can double check that or knows to double check that before it just goes straight to invoicing. Linked activities and materials is also a really important thing. Now, we haven't watched the linked activities and materials video yet. It's the next one in the series. So we'll explain what they are in a minute. But when I complete grub control, there's a decent chance I also want to track, well, how much did we use? And that's where we would get into setting up linked activities and materials. What we can do is link a material or even multiple materials to this service. So when the crew ticks off that they did grub control, they will also have the opportunity to identify how much grub control they used. And I would do that by doing this. I'll go to linked activities and I'll go to add. Now this is going to show me my activity list. And then I would pick, if I had grub control on my list here, I'd pick that and I would say add selected. And then that would bring in my material in whatever units I'm tracking. So pounds, bags, or whatever. Track quantity is on, meaning that, yep, it'll track the quantity. It'll ask the crew how much they used. And then the billing scenario will be there. And we'll set that up on a per job basis. This is simply the default. But I'll click OK now. What this will do is make sure that every time a crew clicks off grub control, it's going to ask them, well, how many pounds of insecticide did you use when you did that? So you'll not only get that the service was completed, yes or no, you'll also get the amount of materials. Another common example for that is in snow, when we're dealing with things like walk de-icing. When I'm doing walk de-icing, I might want to track the number of bags of salt or bags of de-icer that we use. So I have a task here I have a service here called walks de-iced. My invoice description looks like this for my client, but I may also want to track how many bags of salt or de-icer. So under the linked activities and materials, I actually have two things here, one for ice melt bags and one for salt bags. So again, when the crew ticks off that they completed the service called walks de-ice, they'll get two sub questions that show up. How many bags of ice melt and how many bags of salt? And chances are they'll just pick one of those, put in how many bags, and then again, you get both pieces of data, that the service was completed and how many bags they used. And that's just about it for services. It's not that much more complicated. When we get into jobs, we'll show you how to set them up. But quite literally, we can go to a job, we'll go to services, and here's where we'll add the services from our master list to the job, and then we'll set up the invoice type and the price on a per job basis. We'll pull from our defaults, but we can customize all that later. More on that in the job videos. That's all you need to know for services for the settings. If you have any questions, reach out to us on live chat, reach out to us at email at advice@golmn.com, or check our help desk out at golmn.com/help.